Okay, welcome to Concussion Talk Podcast. First, presented by HeadCheck Health. HeadCheck Health bridges gaps in concussion care through simple, powerful technology. Join organizations like the Canadian Football League, Track Factory Racing, the Canadian Junior Hockey League, Eastern Washington University, and Volleyball Canada. Rely on HeadCheck to improve communication and optimize care. Visit headcheckhealth.com for more. And I'm with Erica and Jennifer. This is seems like a little last time, but this was in January. This was episode 140.
7? 9?
3?
Oh.
This is 48, but
okay.
This is 148. But
Okay.
yeah, like we talked in like episode 148. I'm gonna say 43. It could be 42. I don't know. I mean, because Mike Wall and this was. Like,
that's right.
Yeah, so
sounds right.
42 and 43 is around the time for now. Eric is on the board of the Brains Association, so we're gonna we're a unanimity amongst the group for the NLVA. Although not that we didn't before, but just now it's official.
Excellent.
And I guess we'll start us off with a little question / thought to provoke discussion. I talk about the. Let's go first. Let's talk first about the work, how the work, hobbies, occupational therapist. Say the occupation. This is the occupational therapist section here. It says kind of how that's been affected by the brain injury in say, I don't know, not say positive basis, but I mean also just in how it's not obviously it's changed because of the brain injury, but I mean how has it been, say. How do you find it's been just different and maybe better or it's not better than say that, but I mean since your injury.
Yeah. Good question. I guess I'll start more so on a general basis post brain injury, and we've talked a little bit about this off camera, but I've become a lot more of an understanding person, a lot more empathetic in situations where before I had almost these are my opinions, these are my thoughts, I stand by these, but now I've almost become a little bit more over analyzing situations, in some ways good, some ways bad for sure, but trying to understand a bigger picture, it's not just me in this situation, I'm trying to understand how other people feel in the situation.
Which is very good for your physiotherapy.
Yeah, it's very good for my physiotherapy career. Yeah. And it's definitely helped a lot of my relationships that I have with people. But in times it's definitely made me overthink things and maybe make decisions in different ways.
Yeah,
some way positive.
And slower you feel like.
Yeah, totally. Mm. But that's more of a general basis, but I do think it's a positive thing because it's something that I think probably would have happened later in my life as I gathered more experience. I found that too. How wisdom comes with age. You feel older, all of a sudden. Yeah. So I do feel like I've made some realizations by incorporating that into my life now at a younger age, and I think. Yeah. My brain injury and my stroke had, implemented that to come into my life much sooner. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, well, yeah. I feel like that thing, because you gain, I don't know how many years, 20 years,
yeah,
that.
I totally feel that.
It's wow, I'm that much wiser now. I mean, you're not. But, people say, you look at some older people say, wait till you get older, you have no idea. Blah, blah, blah. Which is true for 99.9% of the population, but for me, I'm I heard you.
Yeah, and I always say that, a lot of people say wisdom comes with age, and I always felt that, and I do feel like wisdom comes with age, but more so I think wisdom comes with experience than anything. It's no longer an age thing to me. When you experience the things that we have and what I'm sure other people have experienced, you realize a lot more of the things that probably, like I said, would have come later in your life.
Yeah.
But it's come sooner. So the decisions now that I make at a younger age, I feel like I'm making wiser, more understanding, more empathetic decisions that I think now is going to impact my future going forward.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I feel like that gaining 20 years experience from your...
It's made up.
No, but I like it.
There's no rule.
Because I was trying to...
Maybe it's 30, maybe it's 10.
No, but I was trying to find a word to like cover like you have just a new appreciation for like the fragility of life, and like the way you describe it is way better than the analogy that I had come up with in my head. So I don't know if we have any Harry Potter fans here. Have you?
I like Harry Potter.
I read the first book.
Okay, so there's a part in the there's like spoilers, but like maybe it's Harry Potter. But there's a part where Harry sees his uncle Sirius die tragically, and the magic of Hogwarts and how you get to Hogwarts changes for him because the chariots or whatever's taking the kids to the school are invisible before, but then after this experience that he has, he sees these creatures that I don't remember the name that are not invisible anymore, that are actually pulling these chariots. And the concept, I mean, behind it that I perceive is that like he's experienced some part of the world that has like been traumatic and seen the fragility of life, and that has now shifted his perspective or lens on what is magical or what have you, and so he's seeing things that were there before, but he just didn't have the experiences to draw on to see them, right? And so I use this analogy just because I feel like we had talked about earlier, like whether or not we felt like the circumstance we found ourselves in was like destined or like right? Yeah. And like I can't say that I feel like my circumstance was destined, but I certainly feel like I'm appreciative of the perspective that has given me for that like 20 years perspective or what have you, so that like I'm not going around the world with this like blind assumption that the world revolves around me, or it gives you that like lens of like everyone has probably gone through some form of something, and you should default treat them with kindness and be empathetic because everything is just so hard.
Totally.
So having that new lens, I feel like you can just take the world on in just a very different, more intentional and kind way.
Totally.
Yeah. No, it's like I said, you're saying the great, like, it's kind of a side note, but have you seen the movie Final Destination?
Final Destination, yes, I've seen a couple of them. Which one are they on now?
I know, they're so fun to watch.
They're
ridiculous. It's so ridiculous, but yeah, like that predestined to this happen, but it's kind of like I mentioned earlier, the Sam Harris thing was talking about.
Yeah.
Where he said the possibilities, like what are possibilities, like what is. Like it's either real or it's not real. Like even if there are like multiple universes, so saying like there's real another way, another place. It's real, but if you want to believe in that, but that's a very side alley, very tangential. But yeah, but the whole thing like it's with the real, like either it happened. You couldn't have maybe if I did this it'd be different. Like I was saying, if I was like a minute late or 2 minutes later, 10 seconds late to my bike, I wouldn't have my brain injury, but like that's and then where would I've gone? Then where my life would have been? I would have done this, one of this. But I have to. Who knows? You don't know because it didn't happen. It's like not real. And I kind of learned that. I heard Sam talking about it yesterday, and kind of thought like that's kind of like I kind of thought that like I could feel like figured like a long time ago. Thought like what didn't happen, like that's kind of happened with my acceptance of my brain injury that it didn't happen so far, so I couldn't have like done this and blah 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 triathlon living somewhere else like it didn't happen, so it's not really worth even talking about. It's like it's not real, and kind of like what I think the opportunity cost. I was thinking of this economics. I'm not like an economist, obviously, and but the most basic thing of opportunity of economics is opportunity cost. So everything you do has an opportunity cost, whether it's time, energy, your space, or whatever. So people always like kind of take away I like the way the economics put it, even though it's called like economics is called the dismal science because it's always like negative this time, like, but like they talk about opportunity, and that's like it's like, and but people always drop opportunity and call it everything has a cost, which is fair enough. It's the same thing, but it's like means the same thing. But opportunity is like the main thing is that you have the opportunity to do something different, to which is I think is a part of the wisdom of
Totally.
age experiences, like opportunity to say do something, do this now or don't do this, or make this decision, don't make this decision, or make all decisions, and just the opportunity is just is a way of, like, for example, like I'm kind of rambling here, but on my like I kind of combined the two. So if I didn't have my brain injury, I would continue doing triathlon for like a month. Then I moved to Ottawa. Then I would have joined the water polo team there, and then I would have played water polo, and I would have played water sport just more. So I assume I'd still like to cycle. I love running, never lived running, but I probably wouldn't probably give it up. But I'd play a lot more triathlon, play a lot more water polo, and do cycling a lot. But that's something that
I
didn't
have
happen.
a question for you. You touched on this very briefly not long ago about when you accepted your brain injury.
Yeah.
When was that for you?
But off and on, I guess I kind of accepted it. Like it wasn't within a year, probably 5 years.
5 years post.
Probably.
Right. Okay.
Probably. It wasn't like definitely wasn't a year. Within a year, I was still thinking I would walk. Like one day, it would just come to me. All of a sudden, I'll be walking and running.
Right, and the reason I ask is because I think that's such an important part of recovery.
Yeah.
And as hard as it is to get to that point of acceptance, like I think that is a positive breakthrough.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely was.
Yeah, like I remember like that's when I started thinking more positively. For a long time through my recovery, I always thought like, when am I going to get to the light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah.
When am I going to be myself again?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I accepted where I was and
When was that for you?
I've had multiple points of acceptance.
Or have you, I should say, yeah.
I have, yeah. I had acceptance for sure. I think I want to say like 6 to 8 months after. But I don't know if it was like a full acceptance.
Yeah,
I accepted where I was at that time. And I accepted it for what I knew I needed to get through.
Yeah, no, I said that's a more paragraph, I think, too.
I accepted it for that purpose of letting go of the light at the end of the tunnel. When am I going to be my 100%? When am I going to be me again? I accepted like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to see that light. I don't know if I'm going to be 100%. And that's what I accepted. And I started making, smaller, more realistic, achievable goals, and looking at the smaller things like okay, now I can stand up from a chair on my own. Like that to me was what started to bring gratitude and positivity. And I looked at from a day-to-day perspective. And I stopped looking where am I going to be in a year's time, or when am I going to get to myself. I let go of that because that's when my mind was going in a very negative direction. Am I ever going to get there? And then I get sad. I didn't feel like I was making enough progress. Things like that. But when I started to look at things from a very short timeline with more realistic expectations, that's when my mindset changed. And that happened when I accepted where I was at that time, and I'm like, okay, I could live like this for the rest of my life. I may have to live like this for the rest of my life, and that's what I accepted where I was in that moment in the present space. But I also had like another period of acceptance, and I'd say that was probably only like a year ago.
Yeah.
And at that point, I accepted what was my new normal. And that was like, I accepted some of the things I knew I was probably going to now live with for the remainder of my life.
Right.
Some symptoms that may have plateaued. So, and then I also feel like that acceptance was really important, because since then I've had to come up with like coping strategies. How am I going to manage this through the remainder of my life? How am I going to keep myself positive? So I feel like I haven't had just one acceptance. I had multiple periods of acceptance of what it was I accepted and what I needed at that time of my recovery. And maybe I'll have more. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you probably will.
How about you?
Yeah. I have you today for ports of call. Did any of those resonate?
So, like, I mean, we were talking about possibilities and expectations and acceptance, and like, I feel like I was in that possibilities category for a while, and it puts you in a little bit of a spirally dark clouds or storm cloud mode. The expectations, I always struggled with expectations, because I felt like we had just finished talking about, like, it gives you this added perspective, this new lens, this maturity or experience, and I felt like if you didn't change something about yourself drastically, like become an Olympic athlete or something, that like you weren't seizing this unfortunate opportunity you were given. And I think you
mentioned that last. I think you mentioned that idea last time. You did. Wonder if you did.
Yeah.
That idea last time.
And so the acceptance part, I think I really like what Erica was saying resonates with me in that like you go through different phases of it. So I would say for me, it's only been in the last few months when I was like joining the Newfoundland Brain Injury Association and even like engaging with you both, that I've come out of what I was describing as those storm clouds, because in that like self-protection isolation space, you tend to just be in your own little echo chamber and you don't get perspective, you don't challenge your own thoughts, and without those challenging of your own thoughts, you like, okay, this is the expectation I have of myself, and is that even realistic? Like, so yeah, I think I don't know. I think I'm maybe in a little bit more of a still trying to figure it out.
You're more you've more recently even brain injured than either of us. But I was like, I guess I was predisposed towards say like very philosophical thinking. Though I'm not like I'm just not a philosopher. But I always thought like longer term about just about like it is what it is, and like possibilities is like it's not real. It's just a thing you think it could have been real or is real, but you don't know. That's not what happened. That's not like real. Like there's nowhere that lives. There's nowhere that the thought of me not being brain injured lives.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. So it's not. It's not like I can't just say. You can't like it's hard because when you're young, and I'm talking about like 0 to whatever, anything 0 to 99 for God's sakes. You probably want to care for brain injury at that age, but like you're brain injured, you're thinking like that this is like I should be this. This is how it will be. This is this year, and that's probably worse. So you're thinking like this. I don't know 101, but like. That's not. There's no like. There's just more like not kind of chaos theory, as in like, it's just what it is. There's just there's no there's nowhere that lives that your future lives. They're just in your mind. That's just brain is a crazy thing.
Right.
For
sure.
With the mind, I guess the mind's okay.
The minds.
Yes.
I agree.
If you want to do the whole mind brain dichotomy, which I remember we did in first year. I took one philosophy class in first year at university, and we talked about brain mind dichotomy, and I never thought about it until just that second ago. But I had thought about it, but not. But yeah, but how it's like, it's just that doesn't live anywhere. It's just like that possibility. But say any of us not being brain injured, or not meeting, for example, if we were brain injured, wouldn't have met, and if I wasn't brain injured, I wouldn't even be here. But I mean, if we were brain injured, I wouldn't be here, and if we were brain injured, I would be here. Like
It's true.
So it's just so it didn't happen. It's just not necessarily not worth talking about, but it's just it is worth talking about because this fun little mind game play, but just it's not reality. It's just.
I think part of what you're saying though with the it's not reality part is I'm maybe still in this phase or this weird mode of like trying to perform as if I could without the injury.
Yeah.
And it's kind of exhausting because I'm like kind of lying to myself. I'm like, oh yeah, you're able to do all these things.
Yeah.
It's like, oh right, you can't do the things you used to do that were perhaps not the best work-life balance practices to begin with. So, but I think that's as advice. Some of the things that Erica and you were mentioning, Nick, is to set like realistic expectations of yourself and make them small, incremental.
Totally, like sub goals.
Yeah.
Like if you have a bigger goal and bigger picture in mind, that's fine. But if you're constantly trying to focus on where you are for this bigger picture, you leave yourself thinking, I'm still not there.
Yeah.
But if you break that goal into like 10 sub goals, and like one of those, like I said, is to just be able to stand up independently on your own. Like I remember getting that sense of reward, like I was achieving goals, and that's what really kept me positive, kept me going. Like, because then I'd compare, I was like, okay, well last week I wasn't able to stand up without help.
Yeah.
But now this week I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're reflecting on where you were before then, and considering where you are now, and then that sense of reward. And I still almost practice that in my everyday life, like goals with like very small sub goals to get there, because the achievement, I think it actually allows for like a dopamine release. So it's almost like I took it as like, it's a bit of a strategy. I know I'm struggling here. I'm having like my storm cloud days. And how can I make that better? And like those types of strategies, goals with sub goals allows, and achieving those sub goals allows that dopamine release, endorphin release, and that feel good. So then you're more likely to keep going. You're more likely to like, you almost like crave that feeling. You want that release. It's kind of like similar to how like a lot of people talk about social media, where like, a lot of people on social media, it's like very like driven. How many likes did I get? How many views did I get? And that releases like dopamine. Where it's like, okay, so, this post I got X amount of likes, and you get this feeling, and then you're like more likely to want to post again and continue that behavior. But if you don't, then you're less likely to want to continue that behavior. So the whole sub goal thing for me was like a big game changer, and I still practice it now because I know how effective it was for me.
Interesting.
I was just when you're saying that the likes and the social media stuff, they're thinking of the dopamine, not dopamine, but the opportunity costing, because I could fixate on one thing, but like how that's just it's a short term opportunity costing. Okay, if I just do this, if I just post this video or this picture, that's low opportunity cost and a high reward. And so it's not, and then say, okay, well then I'll do it again, and I'll do it, keep doing it, and then it'll be eventually you'll be like, okay, I've done all that, and I got all these likes, and I got all this dopamine hits, but now it's not reality. Now it's over. Now it's in the past.
Exactly.
So now I'm at a cost. All the time I spent doing this, I could have spent the thing that's supposedly thing, but. But it's opportunity cost wasted, which is then could have been doing this. You couldn't have because there's still no reality not happened. So, that's this is very philosophical for me and not being very helpful to the listeners who are looking to get advice, which they got from me, Erica, and probably you. So how do you? I know for me, I know when I was doing physical therapy, I was like Erica the same way as. More very concentrated in physical therapy. As in, I have goals for this, and you didn't seem to have much. You had much problem with physical therapy as much as you do with the occupational, say getting back to work, getting back to your mind, going to caring quickly and.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the occupational therapy for me was very helpful. I was. Yeah. In fact, when you talk about thinking about the challenges and the reward of returning to walking. I think with me, it might have been so quick that I was back to those things that I'm back to taking that aspect for granted, and I don't reflect on it in the same way. So, in doing so, that's actually put me in a little bit of a detriment because it's it's meaning that I'm going back to comparing to previous version of before the stroke. Am I able to do the same kind of mental outputs, or can I perform in the same capacity? Sort of just disregarding that chapter in the middle of all these things that have happened to you that render you not able to do the things you were able to do before, but also maybe you should question why you're doing it that way to begin with, right? Because it was not sustainable. So when it comes to mental health supports post stroke experience for me, I have had a little bit of a struggle trying to get access to, for example, I was screened out of requiring any kind of psychiatric care at the through public health,
right?
And then pursued my own counseling. Probably 2 years post, because I
found it too, the not the whole thing, but I don't like that. A lot of these supports it's great when you have them right away because that's when they think you need them, but for someone it's delayed a lot and you realize I need more support and more help now.
Yeah, I agree. I was also screened out, which I reflect on and find very almost shocking. I almost wish there was multiple stages of screening, at different periods. I think when I was screened, it was so early stroke, which I understand they want to, for recovery purposes, make sure you're not struggling with depression and things like that at early stages, because early stages is where you see your best benefit, your best recovery. But I was going through a period of I want to say still somewhat shock and somewhat extreme gratitude that I'm still on this planet. Mm-hmm. When I had my stroke, I stayed with my sister, who is an RCP officer and is very well rehearsed in trauma and things like that. So when I stayed with her and I actually read through all of my medical documents so that I knew exactly what happened to me. Because I was in and out of consciousness. So I knew exactly what happened, and reading through the documents, I actually became, oh my God, extremely grateful. I'm still here. My brain was bleeding for 10 hours. How am I on this planet? So I went through a period, early stages, of extreme gratitude. Yeah. So I had a more positive perspective at that time, and that's when I was screened for therapy and from a psychological standpoint. But it wasn't until later when my reality started to sink in, where I started to feel a lot more of these ups and downs. But I then didn't have that resource anymore. Like I was already like the box was already ticked. She doesn't need this help.
Yeah.
When at times I was like, I do need this help. Like I still need to, be screened at this point. So I almost wish that, if you're screened here at this time, rather than just like screen and discharge, I wish there was like screen, okay, follow up in X amount of time, and then follow up in X amount of time, because I feel like depending on what your situation is, like it could change. It's not gonna continue to just get better. Like it may impact someone later in their life.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think of like this analogy. So I was on a waiting list, and I think they were very short staffed. They ended up canceling the program for this waiting list that I was on for trying to get these mental health supports because it just didn't have enough people. So it's systemic to hear. First thing that happens legally is they withdraw your driver's license, right? And then there's this regimented period of
they give you the stern letter.
Yeah.
Don't you dare drive.
Don't even think about it. We'll know if you think about it. Right?
They're very.
So I feel like they have this like very like if we're talking about rules earlier, they have these regimented rules about like when they send out the letters for you to get access again, and how much you need to prove, and then it's regimented. Like every so many years, you need to demonstrate by having your healthcare provider provide a letter or what have you to say yes, this person's still able to drive. There's no upsets in their conditions. I feel like we should be considering that level of thoroughness on the mental health supports.
I 100% agree.
Because like you were just saying it's a up and down roller coaster.
Big roller coaster,
and
absolutely.
You never know when you're sampling them at a high or a low, and
totally.
Yeah.
I 100% agree, and like hopefully even starting this conversation is starting something. And we can communicate it more, especially where we're on the board of the LBIA. Maybe this is something we need to like park and be like, what can we do for people in the future to help change our system, or can we provide any feedback in that way? So I'm glad we talked about that, because I think even talking about it is the start of something.
I hope so.
Absolutely.
And I couldn't agree more. I think we should expand that hopefully, I don't know what we can do, because we're just need the money and the necessary interest may be there on a podcast, but not enough to get other people talking about it. So
I think we should definitely try to get other people talking about it, because like I recognize like the privilege in my perspective. Like I have insurance that covers my own like counseling that I take, and like that's not like in some of the conversations I had with like I can't remember her name for the Brain Injury Canada, the kinds of people that I think her name was Annalise, that she interviews were like people that have traumatic brain injuries from all kinds of things, like from like domestic violence and all that, where you just don't have the tools at your fingertips to get the supports, like the basic care that you would need, let alone the things that come from like your own
That was definitely the one area that I could have used more of, and it could have just been my situation, because like now as a physiotherapist, I feel like physically I know a lot of ways I can help myself, which I know is not the case for everybody, but physically I feel like I can help myself. Emotionally at times I feel like I can't help myself, and having that was always something that I was like, I wish there was something there for me, and that could have been just my unique situation. But I'm sure there's probably a lot of people who feel that the emotional health is definitely somewhere where hopefully we can incorporate more resources with brain injury.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was thinking like that. Like I never screened for, I probably was, but I don't remember. But for psychiatry or everything, and mental health issues, and just never felt like I needed it, and that I don't now. But maybe when I was, well, not maybe, I'd say almost definitely when I was going through not right away, because right away I was more focused on my physical rehabilitation, as that's kind of a distraction, I guess.
Yeah.
A good distraction, but distraction from my other issues that I was just thinking about but later on I could have probably used the mental health assessment to really, because I mean, wasn't an awful way, but I could have been better, definitely. And yeah, so I mean, but I think, so I took my clock there. I'd say we were talking for longer than 35 minutes. Oh, well, perfect. Well, great, not perfect. It's perfect. Half an hour they need. My TikTok need to get like half an hour to get a send upload. So I don't know how to put that on TikTok, frankly. Although I have a TikTok account, so I was listening. And I'll have to.
Someone help Nick.
Someone help me. TikTok, yeah. Yeah. So I think we'll just leave this conversation there for now, because I think it's a great place to end and kind of put the underlying mental health issues that are apparent with that occurred with brain injury. And we'll definitely do another chat like this again, and we'll continue to talk off camera as we did before. But I mean, just for the podcast wise, which is now on YouTube podcast, but I don't think it is on YouTube. I got the thought thing yesterday that YouTube is doing podcasts now, but it says it'll be on YouTube Music. I was like, oh, cool, but only YouTube Music in the US, and so.
I thought YouTube was essentially, I mean, maybe I'm thinking this wrong. YouTube is just a podcast platform if you're uploading.
I've been doing that, but they have a special tags.
Sector.
Yeah, so I don't know if that makes a difference, but they didn't have YouTube Music before, I think. It's probably their main thing. And now they do, but only in the US. And as in only if your podcast is centered in the US. So as in this podcast will not go to the US YouTube Music will go to just normal YouTube, I think now, I'm not positive about that. But anyway, so thanks for listening, and I think this was a great chat, and I love these podcasts are great, and I mean, so this is episode 148, and so at Concussion Talk wherever, either TikTok, YouTube, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think that's probably it.
Good pods?
Yeah,
Good pods, yeah.
Good point. It's like my go-to. But yes, and do you guys want to share anything your?
I think I've actually shared some of mine already. So if you head back to some of the other podcasts I've been in, I think I've already shared some of my tags.
Cool.
Sure.
Cool. All right. Well then, I'll see you early. I don't know, next week, or this will come out on March 20. What day is today?
18th.
25th? 18th?
18.
Jeez, we're a week ahead of myself. So it's going to be March 24th.
Excellent.
And, no, it can't be 18th. Thursday, it has to be 18th.
Today's the 18th because yesterday was St. Patrick's Day.
So March 20th, yes. March 21st is what I meant to say.
Okay.
I knew 24th sounded wrong. I was like, because it can't be, because that means that I did park calculations.
So this one's coming out the 21st?
March 21st. Tuesday, March 21st.
Cool.
But, and then I'll have more in the works, so there'll be more coming up, but I'm not sure when. It'll be next week or week after or whatever. But anyway, thank you for listening, and thank you, Erica and Jennifer, and
we'll chat soon.
we'll do this again, and we'll keep talking after this podcast shuts off, and
For sure.
Jennifer could
Oh, yes,
shut off
absolutely.
the podcast.